Yeah, you got to also consider, what do they want? Are you meeting the need? Is it something that really has a purpose? Because that's going to help that success so much more. And I want to build it up to 1 million cases a month, and then I want to sell it to somebody huge and cash out. And that's great too. We're going to have all kinds of challenges. You're going to have setbacks. Sometimes you're going to be on a great run. It's going to go really well forever. But there's going to be things that set you back, or there's going to be challenges ahead of you. And you got to move forward.
Hi 2Xers, welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast. I'm your host Kunle Campbell. The 2X e-commerce is a podcast dedicated to digital commerce insights for retail and e-commerce teams. So each week on this podcast, I interview a commerce expert, a founder of a digital native consumer brand, or a representative from a best-in-class e-commerce SaaS platform to just help you essentially grow. Their remit is to enable you to provide their stories, to provide their insight, to provide their experience that has delivered the growth of metrics such as conversions, average order value, repeat customers, your audience size, and ultimately your gross merchant value. My purpose here in this podcast is to help you sell more sustainably, as a commerce brand, to build out your brand and essentially fulfill your company's mission and purpose. On today's episode, you're about to listen to podcast I had with Jim Dorey. Now, Jim Dorey, I actually met him. I met him in October. I flew out to California in October for a weekend to join the Think Billions event, which is hosted by Howard Payne. We call him Howie Payne, who built a $1 billion brand, exited that, built another brand worth hundreds of millions of dollars in the fitness space, and then he's still running that, and then he's doing another sort of a mission-driven food and beverage brand again. So he's a mutual friend, and Jim Dorey's expertise is in distribution. He's worked for retailers, for grocery stores, 2 big grocery stores under his belt. And he understands distribution. He's also written a book. And on this episode, we go through the principles of getting your e-commerce brand, your CPG brand, particularly CPG brands or FMCG brands, fast-moving consumer product brands, onto retail stores and keeping them on retail stores. Because it's one thing getting to retail stores, and it's another thing staying in retail stores. So he gives us his formula for that, and what he's saying, with regards to thriving brands. And he shows us a lot of stories of, what brands are doing. He talks about connection. He talks about story. I don't want to go too deep. You have to listen to this episode for sure. And he also gives us his key principles, being in the industry for well over 20 years, on success in life. What are the principles in success in life? And that's what his book is, which is Keep Swimming. So this convo, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very, very, very heartwarming. It was just one of those episodes you record where it feels like a conversation, just a nice conversation. So Just Keep Swimming is his book. I will link to it in the show notes. Enjoy this conversation, and why should you listen? It's just really, if you're looking to move your CPG brand to grocery stores, and you want to know how it works, and you want to get some principles to success, along with that, definitely listen to this one. So enjoy my interview with Jim, and I shall catch you on the other side. Cheers. Welcome, Jim. Welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast. I've been looking forward to this conversation because it was about 2 months ago we last saw in person. So yeah, welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast.
Thanks so much, Kunle. I love your show. I love what you do. I love the audience that you reach. So I'm super excited to give time and to be heard for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I want to dig into who Jim is. People have heard the introduction, but who, from your opinion, who's Jim Dorey? What was your childhood like, and what do you think were like your key memories that formed who Jim Dorey today is? Very open-ended question.
Yeah, no, it's so funny. I think about it all the time. The moments that break us, shape us, and make us, and all these things that happen as a kid. So I grew up not too far from New York City, in northern New Jersey. The youngest of five kids. We were a, working class family. I spent a lot of years in a family grocery corner store where I got exposure to a lot of people from all walks of earth at a young age. And I was smart enough to listen and just hear these lessons every day. And some of them were older folks that would come in and spend time there and just kind of I would laugh and say, "Hey, you're solving the world's problems today." So that kind of helped me early on to get a street education, I think.
Mm,
From there, I went through some of the state schools, public schools. I ended up eventually working in sales and marketing. And then, one of the things that I talk about is having a discipline every day, which I work out every morning early. 25 years ago, I met a group early in the morning at the gym that I would go to. One of them ended up being the president of a large food company that after 5 or 6 years of knowing me personally said, "Hey, I want you to come join us."
mm.
That was a company called Wakefern Foods, which is about a $17 billion U.S. Supermarket business. And then I spent almost 20 years there, where kind of brings me to today's career. So I run 25 stores. We're over $1 billion in U.S. sales, and I get the opportunity to work with thousands of associates every day and trying to take care of families.
Incredible, incredible,
Thank you.
incredible, incredible. Humble beginnings, good connections. What I picked up was just discipline, a routine, and trust, and this is the outcome. Okay, so let's go back into Wakefern Food. How long were you there for, and what did you do there in the capacity of sales?
Yeah, so the career was almost 20 years. When I initially
Wow.
came in, it was real estate, so helping to find new locations and negotiate leases so we could build new stores. And then through there, I went into different divisions, helping to run frozen foods and dairy food divisions. Then I eventually went into one of subsidiaries called Pricerite Marketplace, and I moved up through various positions there, becoming the president about 6 or 7 years ago. It's a 60-store chain. We have supermarkets in lower income areas throughout the East Coast of New Jersey. And then just about a year and a half ago, I moved to a related company, which is Inserra Supermarkets. So running a bit of a bigger chain for a beautiful family owned company.
Mm, mm, mm. And what's been the different? What's been the difference in from a point of view of your experience in working for Pricerite, which is multi-billion-dollar company, and in Sarah, which now is a family run business. They're two sort of sizes.
Yeah, it's funny is one side was a little more corporate, a lot of structures, a lot of meetings, a lot of multiple sign-offs, and then you come to today's group where you have a family that's very involved in it. They give you decision-making rights, so it's a lot more on the go moving. But at
Mm,
the end of the day, I think the thing that's the most the same anywhere I've been or anywhere you go is you're dealing with people every day, just
mm,
trying to do the right thing for your team, show them that you appreciate them, respect them, giving them the room to grow and make great decisions,
mm,
and having fun as you do it. I say there's too many meetings that you walk into with a lot of people, and everybody's got this real serious look on their face. And
mm,
I always look around and say, hey, what if we all walked in smiling? Would that change how this meeting's going to go? So I
mm,
try and bring that every day.
Interesting, super super interesting. You've been in the retail industry for well over 20 years now. And speaking of customers, you just talked about customers, satisfying customers.
So,
How do you think shopping behavior has evolved from 20 years back to today? What key trends have you seen or shifts have you seen, and how do you see this panning out over the next few years?
yeah, I'll tell you, it's amazing how so many things have changed. Probably in the last 6 or 7 years, the speed of change has been off the charts. But it's also amazing how so many things are still the same. So in some ends of it, we're running physical supermarkets, but we also offer online pickup and then delivery to your door. So on one end, you have customers who are going to make that trip to the store. They're going to pick up meat. They're going to pick up seafood. They're going to pick up cheese and butter and vegetables, produce. And then on the other end of it, you're competing with huge companies like Amazon and Walmart and Target and really just about anybody else. Where I always used to say 15 years ago, at least in this market, if you wanted to buy a gallon of milk, you had to go to a grocery store or a supermarket. At this stage of the game, you could have it show up at your door. You could get it at a gas station. You could get it at a convenience store. There's really so many different channels to serve the need. So you have to look at how do you take care of the customer and make them want to come into your store and then just cultivate them as a customer, whether their preference is some days they want to order at their door in an hour, other days they want to do a large piece and then pick it up, and then other days they want to come into the store and stroll it for the experience. So you really need to deliver on every end of it. So again, I think there's a little bit of change, but the same, the history of it.
That's fascinating. So a lot of listeners of this show are, running or part of operations that are like digital native CPG brands. Some might be just general, products, but they're still selling to a consumer market. How do they efficiently, given how fluid and how easy it is? Essentially, this is all about convenience from what you just said. How do they efficiently allocate resources from a distribution standpoint to cater to at least 70 or 80% of their customers' needs? Meeting them wherever they are now in 2023.
Kunle, I think the most important thing you talk about is meeting them where they are. So many times you hear about brands or retailers or online that want to force, they want to deliver in a certain way. And the customer is going to drive the way they want. And anytime we're looking at a promotion or a product or a pricing and we're trying to change the way people are behaving, you got to also consider, what do they want? Are you meeting the need? Is it something that really has a purpose? Because that's going to help that success so much more. And I give credit to everybody who's listening that's building a brand, starting a brand, trying to create something, because that's what's making the world spin right now, and it's making so many great stories. And I always have such respect for anybody that puts himself out there. And there's probably a lot of failures before you get the big hit, but just keep pushing for sure.
Yeah. Super, super, super interesting. So for like digital native brands, what will be the first step? So by digital native, say you're selling, on your Shopify store or you're selling on Amazon, if you want to meet customers where they are, how would you do it, Jim, if you were a founder listening to this podcast?
Yeah, listen, first I'd get out there and scramble. You got to get some volume going and get some momentum going, because, like they used to always say, nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. So when you got a little bit of momentum and you have people and you're making sales and you're moving product, then everybody wants a piece of it. So as a retailer, if we see somebody that's selling millions of units on TikTok, we want to learn more about it and say, hey, is there a way to tie into it? You think of like Mr. Beast, who started his candy bar. It just blew up because he had such a following. So as a traditional retailer, you want to understand, can I tap into that audience too? So that's a part of it. I think being online and connecting with other people trying to do the same things as you. When I wrote Just Keep Swimming, it was about learning from my experience and sharing it with others. There's people that have made mistakes over years and years and years, and then they had some big hits. And if you can learn anything from them earlier on and try and help you get things going better and get more momentum more quickly, that's going to just compound immensely. So be out there with that. There's also these networking groups that have resources. You're working on packaging, you may have somebody who you think is great, but you might run into a contact who puts you in touch with someone who can do it for a third of the price. And and being cost conscious is going to be critical to making it happen. And then just continuing to reach out is important. And I think so, having a purpose and being true to what your brand is. We talked, you and I offline talked a little bit about how a personal brand and building a CPG brand had so much in common. And if you're not authentic and you don't have a purpose and you don't have a reason and you're not true to what you say you're going to do and you're not different from what's out there, it's very hard to be the next great one.
Okay, really, there's a lot to unpack there.
Sorry, so I had to go, man.
No, absolutely. But I picked up on purpose, on connecting with customers, with the market, and just having that story. What brands do you think are really doing it well? Building that momentum, having that following, and then scaling that following through channels such as offline distribution or bricks and mortar.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I said Mr. Beast earlier. I mean, you talk about somebody who has this, millions and millions of followers, mostly younger crowd. So somebody like a Target or Walmart sees that and says, hey, if we can have something that wants to bring that crowd in that we're probably underserving right now to come into our stores, that's a home run. I'll give you a couple examples of some smaller, newer ones that I talk about, but I think their purpose is so clear. that any customer that hears her story is going to want to support them. So one is Coletti's Cookies. This is a young lady that we had met a few months back through LinkedIn and online connections, which I'm a big fan of, as you know.
Hmm.
And Colette was born with Down syndrome. She put herself through school. She went on a lot of job interviews, and she's super, great personality. In every interview, they'd say, "Hey, you're really great. We really like you, but you're just not the right fit." So baking was always a hobby of hers. So over time, she said, "You know what? I'm going to start my own business." And she started this business selling cookies, door to door to some grocery stores, and then doing some online, which she's doing really well with. And then through a mutual contact, we met, and now we've gotten her into our stores, and she's probably in almost 100 retail stores at this point. And her message is to change the world one cookie at a time. She's hiring people with disabilities to make this product, which is fantastic. And to me, that's a connection that any parent, any family, any really good person's going to want to be a part of. And the cookies are delicious, so she's going to blow up. Another example, you and I talked about Kunle is our friend Howie P.
Hmm.
With Mighty Yum. So,
Absolutely.
Lunchables, for everybody who doesn't know, is a kid snack that's in the dairy section in the U.S. at least, and it's something that you eat on the go. So Howie P and Mark, his partner, they wanted to change and improve how people eat on the go. So they came up with this plant-based Mighty Yum product. Fantastic packaging. You got a couple of people behind it who have built billion-dollar brands, but they're very true to their purpose. He's very passionate, both of them and their whole team, about helping kids to eat better and helping families to eat better. So when you get that behind it and you get all those ingredients, it just takes off and explodes. You have some other examples, but those are just a couple to me that are really going to change things, and they're very clear on their purpose, so people want to support them.
Absolutely. Howard P was on the show, a few months ago.
Sure.
Just incredible presence, and
Yeah.
I met him in person. I met you in person, in October, at the Think Billion, event, and Mighty Yom is amazing. I follow them on Instagram, and they're set to change the world,
Agreed.
and give children, where it all starts, a good start in life with better options, with better shopping options, similar to what we're doing at Octillion, but at a huge scale and with a very, very, very pin focus, which is children and convenience, convenient meals, which I find really, really, really fascinating and just incredible. Okay, so with these stories, and I really, really get what you're talking about with regards to stories. So having these stories that actually speak to good people, as you said, people who want to stand behind your story. People like the David and Goliath story all the time, and standing by it. Do you have any guidelines to listeners or for listeners on how to craft your story, because some of us have stories, we all have stories behind us, but
That's right.
we just don't know how to tell them. And what separates good from great is the great brands do have that ability to tell the story in the most articulate, emotional way that gets people connected to the brand long term, and they keep telling their story. The story keeps changing, and that helps with retention.
Yeah, it's such a good point, and the fact is, you got to keep telling your story because you've heard it a million times, but to the rest of the world, it's the first time they're hearing it. It's so hard to reach that audience. So I think the fact is, it's got to be something that's real and you really believe in. So are you putting the best ingredients that you possibly can in? Are you trying to solve a problem with making a great value for the customer, whoever that customer is? Are you willing to grind it and maybe not make as much as you want early on to build the volume? And are you clear on where you want it to be? So, what is a success if you're starting your brand today? Some people want to, they have some really healthy product that they just want to help people to eat better, and that's all they want to do. And they want to get it into as many hands as they can, and they don't care if they ever make a dollar. They're going to be a nonprofit, and that's their belief, and that's great for them. You got other people that say, "Hey, I want to build it up to 1 million cases a month, and then I want to sell it to somebody huge and cash out," and that's great too. And I think you need to be clear on it. And it's okay to understand that as it goes along, the answer may change. You may start off and say, "Hey, I want to help the world," and then you may say, "You know what? If I cash out for $1 billion, I can help even more people." So
Mm.
being clear on that, and then always checking yourself having people around you, whether it's a team of your own or a sounding board, your own personal board of directors, that can kind of keep you in check and can ask you hard questions. Because when you're running it and you're the main person and you start to grow it, you tend to get a lot of people around you who let you make all the decisions.
Mm.
But at a certain point, you're going to need people to tell you, hey, you're a little bit off track, or at least to check you, to make you think about it. And that's really important because, the people who don't get that, great pushback, they tend to go on a one track, that maybe is not the best way to get there. So you got to be open to it, taking advice from as many people as you can. You don't have to always follow that advice, but I think hearing as much as you can so you can kind of put it against what you know is a great way to succeed as well.
Absolutely. Perspective is so important. And, we only have so much, visibility from our view, from a certain angle, which speaks to this advisory board, you're alluding to. What personalities, what expertise at a minimum should entrepreneurs have, around them? So, their ideas are ring tested and then they take, more informed decisions. How would you design that council, around you?
Yeah, it's great, and it's going to be different for everybody. I had the example. I had the privilege to go to Harvard Business School in an executive management program called the Advanced Management Program, and in that I was already, an adult and executive, with children. My company sent me to live at Harvard for 2 months, and you go into a living group with 150 executives from all over the world, with all different experiences. Some of them ran huge utilities, some of them ran banks, some of them were entrepreneurs, and from there, those are a group of people that we talked about. How do you build your own board? And some of them may be in a totally different business from you, but you like the way that they carry themselves. Some of them are very financially savvy, and you say, hey, that's a resource for me. Some of them are just good, grounded people, and you say, you know what, they make me feel good when I'm around, and I like the way they speak. And those are some of the people. So I think it's going to be a collection, and I like to look at my network of people the same way. I'm constantly making connections, whether it's LinkedIn, online, through business. I love to learn people's story, hear about what they do, and then I like to connect them with people who I think could help each other. So if I have a couple great friends, and you being one of them now, if I meet somebody who I think is, could have something in common, just connect them and see what happens. And sometimes it's just a matter of growing that ring, but from that becomes the board. And then it's just a content that you can grab everywhere. I talk about it now. You think between, the podcasts that are out there, the YouTube classes, that you could take a class from a Stanford professor for free right now. And you should take every resource that you can and spend all your time. You got to put time aside, whether you're reading or listening, to just expand and learn. And that, some of these podcasters end up becoming part of your council, even though you don't even know them, because some of their advice starts to guide you on what you want to do. So it's a different collection for everybody. And I think a well-rounded group is certainly going to benefit you.
Yeah. And I think, I guess the message there is just don't do it on your own. It takes a village, and build that village. Just a follow-on question on there. Do you ever bring your advisors together in the same room to brainstorm on a topic if possible, especially when they're in different, industries or even different parts of the world?
Yeah, not so much in person, but we will jump on a Zoom call from time to time because of location and everyone's time differences and schedules, etc. When possible, anytime I can get in a room with a few of the people that I really respect and just spend some time. Sometimes it's just kind of talking about life, where you are. Sometimes it's talking about a business issue. That's always time well spent, and I think it's necessary too. Sometimes, if you're living in your factory or in your plant or in your office and you're just grinding all day fixed on one thing, you need an hour or two to get out where you talk about different topics, and you may think you don't have time to do that, but the time that it's going to give you back to clear your mind and, like you said earlier on, kind of meditate and get yourself grounded, usually is going to pay off tenfold.
Interesting. Okay, so my next question is a bit left field. Are you a swimmer?
Not really. That's the ironic part.
You know where this is going.
I do.
All right. So your book is called Just Keep Swimming. I've spoken to a few folks, personal folks who've read the book, and they've said it's incredible. I'm just about to order the Kindle version.
Thank you.
I think it's just available on Amazon.com. in terms of like the hardcover and the paperback. So I'm going to get the Kindle. I'm going to be in the States in December, so I'll make sure I get a copy.
Beautiful.
So Just Keep Swimming Towards Success, Fulfillment, and Happiness. Why Just Keep Swimming, and why did you write this book?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Thanks for getting it. Thanks for anybody who picks it up. And I say in it, if I help one person, to make things better for themselves, is worth the effort. And I've gotten enough feedback to know that was a success. So the reason I wrote it and Just Keep Swimming is to keep moving forward, always onward, always upward. We're gonna have all kinds of challenges. You're gonna have setbacks. Sometimes you're gonna be on a great run. It's gonna go really well forever. But there's gonna be things that set you back, or there's gonna be challenges ahead of you, and you got to move forward. Nobody. I meet far too many people that are stuck in neutral, thinking about a plan. They're crafting this perfect plan to build their business, or do something with their life, or create a charity, or whatever it is. But they're waiting to get the plan 100% developed, and a year later they never have gone anywhere. To me, I'm like, take that 80% plan and charge forward and craft it as you go to get it where you need to be. So it's about moving forward that way. And like I said earlier, writing down all these thoughts over 6 or 7 years, I got a lot of experience, and you learn a lot of hard lessons. And again, just like with your children, if you can try and show them one thing to help them avoid pain, it's a great thing. If they can be convinced that when you say, hey, a flame is very hot, don't put your hand in there, and you can avoid them burning their hand one time, it's fantastic. Now, a lot of times, as we know, there's no other way. They're going to put their hand in there anyway and say, well, you know what? You were right
You're
about
right.
that. Yeah. So maybe they take the next advice. And that was the whole part of it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the funniest thing to me, and, fortunate to know a lot of people doing really well and really successful. And when I wrote the book, even my wife, I didn't even tell her I was doing it. She said, you have a book. Why didn't you tell me about it? And I said, I thought I would just show you rather than tell you. We could all talk about what we're going to do, but just put it out there. And a bunch of my friends said, man, I've been thinking about writing a book forever. And yeah, what do you do? How'd you do it? I said, listen closely, because I'm going to tell you how I did it.
All right. Go for it.
I got started. I start today. Go ahead. Start writing it. Don't say you want to do it. It's like when you talk about, hey, I want to play, I want to play in the World Cup in soccer. You do. Yeah. If you did, you'd be out on the field 24/7 training, putting yourself, outworking everybody else. But to say I want to do it and sit back and watch it on TV and say, wouldn't that be great? You don't really want to do it. That's just something you dream about doing.
Yeah. A dream, a dream is just a dream. It's just a thought. A thought is just a dream, and right. You need to take action, right? Okay, so you, in chapter 1, you talk about building the right mindset, and it's evident that the right mindset is getting started, setting goals. Are there any other elements of just orientating yourself in the right mindset, which will be set for success? What patterns have you sort of established from that perspective?
Yeah, it's definitely about disciplines, and having, anybody you meet who's done well over time, you see the success they have and you say, wow, yeah, I want to be there, but you don't see all the setbacks that they had and all the hard work that they put in. So you need to be constant and consistent. Talk about continual improvement, right? Every day getting a little bit better at it. Mindset wise, you got to, to me, the positive force that you have to be and bring that energy every day. There's a lot of people you run into who, have a look on their face and they're kind of grumpy all the time. And they may be great. You may do business with them, but typically you're going to be more drawn to the person that's a little more upbeat and's got that positive energy. And that when you bring that to other people, that ends up bringing more opportunity to you. And I talk about all the time, to younger, people that I meet, and I try and share advice wherever I can. Some want it, some don't, and that's okay. But I said, listen, you want to make as many fans of Kunle as you can, right? So you're going to meet people all along the way. If you can always make a good impression and always do your work and always help and go above and beyond, there's going to be a room one day where they're talking about an opportunity. You don't know who's in the room because you don't get to choose. You don't know what the opportunity is, and you don't even know that the conversation's happening. But the more people that are in that room that are fans of yours and have seen your great work and your great attitude, that's just going to bring you opportunity. So every day you're working on that and making it happen. And that over time, just compounds more and more opportunity. And then obviously you got to want to put in the work. At any given day, it's easy to kick back and not do it. And sometimes you need a day of rest, and that's fine. But over time, if you're putting in an extra hour of productivity, an extra 2 hours, you're making an extra 10 calls, or you're putting out an extra 5 emails to promote, or you're reaching out to one more connection. You take that body of work and, you get to be older like me, and it's a lot of years of adding
Mm-hmm.
up that you just got more years of work than everybody around you. And it's just,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not fantastic at it, you're going to get ahead.
Yeah. Big ideas I picked up from there was likability, networking, not in the sleazy way, but really genuinely,
Yeah.
Connecting with people. So they're your own advocates, and then hard work. You've got to put in, the work on a regular basis.
Yeah, if I could add to your point is, and I should have been more clear, which was excellent, is that the sleazy way, you got to network people for no purpose for yourself.
Certainly.
Again, like you see good people, you think they could help each other, or you know of a resource or an article that you read that might help somebody who's working on something, sharing it with them and not looking for anything in return. That's the body of work. That's the network that you're going to have, that people know, you've helped me 6 or 7 times, and you never asked anything in return.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman who I have huge respect for, Anthony Gordon, who is just huge in so many aspects. And when I start a call with him, he usually starts off the call with saying, "How can I help you today? What can I do for you?" And most times I don't have any ask, but it's just that's his outlook on everybody he talks to, and it's a great outlook.
Yeah, absolutely. Just value-driven relationships, value. And, it's just things you say to yourself. From a mindfulness standpoint, do you lean on any mindfulness practice, to help with mindset?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I never strict meditation, but sometimes just when I'm exercising, in my head, and it's kind of funny because I used to, when I was younger, I'd say, "Hey, what are the other executives at my level doing? Are they here this morning doing this work?" And that was like a motivation for me, which I don't know if I laugh because I said it's a little crazy to have that in your mind, but it was something that made me work harder. But not like meditation, but I'll get to the beach. I'll try a little bit of fishing. I never catch anything, but I always say, they say, they always, I'll see somebody walking away. They'll say, the question is, did you catch anything? I always say, yeah, peace of mind. But it's just, being by the water, hearing the sound, getting the fresh air. That's my time. Even when I'm driving, because I do spend time in the car, typically I have some kind of podcast on, something that I'm learning from, but it's also setting your tone for where you're going to end up. Because if you're in traffic and you're getting crazy and yelling and screaming and beeping horn, and then you shoot into the next meeting, you're going to bring that with you. So you got to have you got to bring that. And one line that I created that I live every day now is, I want to put a smile on my face before I put my feet on the floor. So every day when I wake up, I literally open my eyes and I remind myself I got to smile, because I'm going to get out of bed. My family might only see me for those few minutes before I get the day started. And I want them to see, the good that I'm bringing also. And it can't be, they don't get the grumpy me and the rest of the world gets to see upbeat me. It's not fair.
Super, super interesting. No, I like that. And I like that a lot, from the perspective of the first thing you do, in the morning is essentially smile. It's a deliberate, it's a very intentional, thing to do. So interesting. I'll steal that from you for sure.
You're smiling all the time anyway.
Thank you. The other thing I picked up from that is, mindfulness is just slowing down and, listening to yourself. So over the weekend, I felt, I had the flu or something. And yesterday, thank you. And yesterday I went out for a run, and, I was just focusing on my breathing. And that in itself is a meditative state, when you're just focusing on your breathing, just in and out, and, just clearing that mind, and which is so important. And a lot of us, that live in really busy cities or what have you, just don't have the time, or we're parents and we're jumping from one thing to another, just don't have the time.
Yeah, listen, the struggle is real, right? And if you could put your phone down for a half an hour and not think about the text or the social media or the messages, just disconnecting, it's just so powerful, but it's so hard to do. And like you said, you got so many people pulling at you and so many responsibilities that you need it could be 10 minutes and that could serve your purpose.
Interesting. Okay, and then any other really big ideas from the book you'd like to share with us? I mean, there's a chapter dedicated to getting in with a plan, seizing every each and every day, less stress is more success. Why is less stress more success? With this hustle culture wherein everybody is, trying to, express, just share, how many hours of sleep they got and, how many hours of the grind, particularly when you're in your 20s and your 30s,
Sure.
right? Is this a post 40 reality, or would you say a 20-year-old person should not stress?
Listen, I don't think anybody is at their best self when they're stressed, right? You
Mm,
think about the physical and mental changes that happen to you when you're really in a stressful situation, and you're not going to be reacting your best way. Your breathing's going to change, your speaking's going to change. And listen, early on, I learned this. You get in front of a board meeting, and when you're waiting for your turn, your heart starts to go, and you feel it up in
mm,
your chest, and you're tightening. And through some work with some people who helped me to be more mindful of it, it was like, no, hey, take control of your heart rate, take control of your body, and then focus on. And I used to say this. I'd say, man, sometimes it'd be stressful getting in front of a board meeting, but in my prior company, we would recognize people who had years of service, 30 years, 40 years of service. They'd come to the board and they'd say thank you, and it was really nice. And I said one day, you know what? To them, it's a privilege to come here. It took them 40 years to get in front of this board to be addressed, and you could see how much they appreciated it. I
mm.
should appreciate every single opportunity I get to do it, and now look at it as an opportunity to show what I'm capable of and show people who I am every single time. So that when you take that stress out of it, it just becomes much more powerful, and then you take that energy and put it into something that's going to drive you.
I love the framing of gratitude, just
Thank you.
reframing a stressful situation and finding essentially the good in it to change your entire, perspective, which is very, very deeply mindful in itself. Okay. So we're just about to wrap up. And I want to go back to, distribution. A lot of listeners still listening now, want to kind of, get, just some final tips. I personally want to get some final tips
Sure.
on how to, get distribution. How do you talk to retail buyers? How do you get their attention? They're inundated with a lot of new products. How do you stand out? What's the importance of packaging? What about your personality? What's the best way to cut through that noise and speak to people like you to get more distribution?
Asking for a friend, huh?
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, there's so many great resources, a couple of them. First of all, every entrepreneur that I've met is super helpful and looking to help others. So if you reach out, you go online and make all of these connections, that's one thing. Incubators that are out there are some phenomenal ones. Big Idea Ventures is one. Andrew Ive, great guy who started a business based on, they were mostly food related startups, a lot of plant based stuff, but they have these cohorts every 2 times a year. Now they have them in 5 different cities around the world, and you get a chance to pitch your idea. Also, talking to the broker world, right? So, a lot of the food brokers that are out there, they're the ones that will get you into a large retail chain. And they're going to talk to you about, listen, some of them, it's like anything else. You got to find the right one. Some of them are looking for every penny for themselves. But then there's some really great ones that will take the time to tell you, hey, here's what you're going to need to do before you can think about getting on the shelves. And here's what it's going to take. And sometimes it's an investment. So there's just all of those resources that any one of those, if you start now just building that network of it, you're going to find people that are going to help you. Obviously, it starts with you got to have a great product. If your
Mm-hmm.
product has no need and there's no market for it, all the great resources in the world won't help you there. But even that being said, they may help you to your next idea. We talked about how we pay his first $1 billion company. I think he said he had over 30 failures of startups
Mm-hmm.
before he got to that hit. So you got to be willing to put that in and know that I came from the world of sales, and one day I learned the statistic that most customers are going to say no 8 times before they say yes, but most salespeople will only ask 3 times. So if you do the math and you never get past three, and it takes to get to number 9 to get that yes, you got to be persistent and you got to be willing. The no's are part of it. I used to think early on, oh great, one more no gets me that much closer to that yes, and you got to have that mindset in your head if you're going to build something great.
Really, really good stuff to unpick. There. Yeah, interesting. Really interesting. So, those networks are really important. Getting through to those networks. Another question I have, final question I have, really is, say you built your business, online. You've got your first order. For a bricks and mortar distribution, deal. You're going to about 70 stores or something. You're launching into 70 or 100 stores, and then you're like, okay, there's cash. There's not enough cash in bank to essentially fulfill this order for the retailers, and retailers want that, speed, agility. They want you to get into the stores. What would you advise, what would you advise from a capital stack standpoint, to entrepreneurs in order to fulfill their retail, purchase orders?
Yeah, listen, your point is great because it takes all that work to finally get that order. You don't want to disappoint on the first one.
No.
So, yeah, you got to have that backing. There's all kinds of equity out there. There's all kind of venture capitals. There's all kinds of people who look for startups and maybe they're going to take a piece of it. And some of these accelerators, Factory LLC is another one. This is a couple gentlemen. He built a couple $billion brands, and now he takes, you come in, pitch your idea. They help, I don't know if it's 12 companies at a time, and they give them every resource they need, including financing, to get ready to launch. And then when you do, if you got the money behind you, you finally get that order. My advice is to be in every one of those stores if it's possible. Ask, hey, can I do demos? Can I stand by where I'm going to display and give it out and get people to try it? Because when you think about, like, one of our supermarkets might have 60,000 items in there today, and they all have a purpose. So just because you're excited because Kunle brought his new brand in today, the rest of the world didn't notice. Those 60,000 items are still there. So you're some little spot on a shelf somewhere. How are you going to make it stand out? So if you can get some people in there sampling it, talking about it, telling your story, customers are people too, and they want to root for somebody. So if you can make a few connections and how it spreads, use your, there's so many talented people with social media and their reach there. Make sure you're doing everything you can to hype it up, because if I know a brand's going to come in and they're going to go over and above and they're really personally invested in it, I'm going to give them more of a chance. It's not just going to be a number that I look at after 4 months and say, wow, we only sold 50 cases. They're out the door. So you can improve your chances by being a real face behind it, because those buyers, majority of them too are good people that want to see you succeed.
Mm-hmm. Jim, as being in the retail industry yourself, running stores, how do you make decisions on what brands to stay, which is pretty easy? They're moving off the shelves, and what to take off. What's a decision making sort of psyche? Just for listeners to kind of get some perspective on what to do and what not to do.
Sure. Listen, customers are typically going to tell you, right? If it's selling, it's staying, right? For the most part. Sometimes the manufacturer, sometimes the person who created the item makes a shift and they want to change it. It ends up being about volume at the end of the day, because to run the stores, to deliver, it's just so expensive to keep that inventory coming in. So if the customers are picking it up, and you got to have realistic expectations too. So what does success look like for your brand? If you're like a specialty, type tofu based jerky, whatever item it is, your expectation might be, okay, 2 cases per store per week is going to be successful. If you're an Oreo cookie brand, flavor, you may need 100 cases per store per week to be successful. So setting that up early on, and the financials behind it is going to be what it is. And from your partners, your retailers, building that expectation too. Also, if you can get that online presence and you're selling a lot, and if you're in other retailers, I say sometimes retailers are like kids. They don't want it until somebody else has it. So if we see something on the shelf at Walmart, we're more likely to say, hey, we should be considering that.
Yep.
I hope that helps.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to wrap up now with our lightning round, line of questions. They're evergreen.
I hope I can move quick enough.
So if you could use one single, sentence to answer each question I ask, it'd be great. Ready when you are.
Go.
So, what advice would you give to yourself 5 years ago?
Just keep moving forward.
Like that. Are you a morning person?
100%.
What's your morning routine like? Your daily morning routine?
Put a smile on my face before my feet hit the floor, and then go.
Are you into sports?
Yes.
If yes, what's your favorite team?
No favorite team. I love NCAA college football and college basketball.
Why college and why not the NFL and NBA?
The leagues got really political here a few years ago, and everything was about, you couldn't just watch a game and enjoy it, which when I watch it, I want to enjoy it. And in the college aspect of it, it's just kids that are working. Some of them are going to be millionaires, but a lot of them are just doing it because they love the game. And it's just so competitive, and you can watch 10 games. And I'm better when I'm not personally connected to the team because I get upset and angry when I see them do poorly.
it's the purity there. Okay, so what 2 things can't you live without?
My family and coffee.
Fantastic. And what book are you currently reading or listening to?
It's funny. It's the Bible in a year. I'm listening to it, which, I said I probably should have done this a long time ago, but it's pretty insightful. I've heard a lot of the stories, but to hear them again is helpful.
It's never too late. So lately, I've been giving. So lately, so I have an 11-year-old son,
Nice.
and he's been coming back to me with just challenges he's facing in school. And a lot of the time, it's like, Bible stories. So I tell him about Daniel in the lion's den and how that turned out. And just interesting how, my mom used to sit me down and tell me to read, passages in the Bible. And now it's just...
You become your parents.
Exactly. I am a parent. All right, Jim, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the 2X e-commerce podcast show. For people who want to find out more about you, I've linked up to we'll be linking up to your LinkedIn profile and Instagram from the show notes. We're also going to be linking up to your book, Just Keep Swimming. Folks listening, this is an amazing book. Get a copy. We'll link onto it. It's Just Keep Swimming Towards Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment. There is a lot of wisdom from Jim on here. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the 2X e-commerce podcast.
It's been too much fun, Kunle. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's time.
Cheers.
Cheers.